rural Maharashtra. To tell you the position of Maharashtra, as per the 2011 census, there are 27 million of rural workers, and out of this, the proportion of agricultural workers are quite substantial, and 46% of the rural households are labor households, and 80% of the labor households are agricultural labor households. 22% of these laborers are from scheduled caste and 17% are from the scheduled tribes. The migration pattern, if you see the stream of the migration, as you know, there are different streams like rural to urban, rural, then urban, and urban. Urban that we are not considering, but other three streams we are considering. And we have the statistics available from Census of India, National Sample Survey Organization, latest round, 64th round I have taken, and then labor group data. So keeping this information in mind, I am not giving the details because it will be tightened with the statistics. I don't want to give that. Just I will give the key points. That in Maharashtra, hardly outside migration takes place out of the state. People hardly migrate from Maharashtra to other states. Limited migration takes place to outside migration takes place in a limited manner, only in the stream of rural to rural. Few people from Maharashtra, comparatively, they migrate to other states like Gujarat and Karnataka to work in the sugarcane belt and other kind of developed agricultural areas. But the rural urban migration, though it was there from Maharashtra to Gujarat and Karnataka, in the recent decade it has declined. And major part of urban migration or rural to urban migration is within the state. Recent statistics shows 2 million of workers in Mumbai city, they are from rural Maharashtra. And if you see look at the inter-district migration, rural to rural migration is predominant. It is higher in the states, in the districts of Gadchiroli, Bid, and Bhandara, and those backward districts. And rural to urban migration is higher in Aurangabad, Nasik, Pune, Amravati, and these are the districts. And urban to rural migration is negligible, and it is in few districts like Sindhudurg and Ratnagiri, those districts. But you know, if you go by this census reports, it gives a kind of very partial account. Many aspects of the migration it does not cover. Only NSSO data gives more details, but it has its also own defects because it doesn't give a kind of district level information, only state level information it gives. So what it tells us, the NSSO information, the 55% of the migrants in Maharashtra migrate within the districts, and 94% moved within the state, and rural to rural urban migration is around 70%. And rural to rural migration is largely a kind of temporary phenomenon, and it is actually covers about 71% of the total migration, rural to rural migration, and they are largely seasonal in nature, and they are driven by poverty factor. They are largely poverty driven or poverty induced migration. The seasonal migration largely takes place from districts of Bid, Osmanabad, Jalgaon to other kind of advanced rural areas like sugarcane belt of western Maharashtra, and also to the other districts. And the recent study, one of the NGOs, very famous NGO, Janrath, which made a kind of very interesting study on migration. It showed that lot of migrant households from rural areas also they are migrating to the Surat and Ahmedabad, that industrial pockets. Besides agriculture, rural to rural seasonal migration also takes place to other activities like brick making, stone quarrying, and other rural construction activities. Point actually I want to tell you that this seasonal migration, which accounts for more than 71% of total migration, it is largely poverty driven, or poverty is a kind of a push factor for this migration, and it is people are migrating under distressful conditions. And we have a kind of a government, very powerful kind of popular kind of scheme, MNREGA, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, and Maharashtra is the lead state where actually Employment Guarantee Act was there since 1965. So it has a kind of long background. But this program has miserably failed to check this distress seasonal migration. Recently, Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, it conducted a kind of series of studies on seasonal migration, and also Kelkar committee also it has also indicated about the pattern of migration. Kumar and Chakravarti and many other kind of independent studies, they have shown that how MNREGA has failed to check the check the distress migration. The 100 days limit of 100 days employment generation, which is fixed by the MNREGA, that is not being fulfilled, and very rarely it is fulfilled. And many states, many districts, they have actually performed far below the kind of expected level. And the one more thing, recently the survey actually which was made in Mumbai of the migrant laborers, 45% of the migrant laborers, they have only 45% they have the job cards, those who are born from the rural areas, and 25% of these they have worked under the MNREGA, and only 88% have been benefited. So this is the kind of a story in brief. So I am concluding, I don't, just 2 minutes. So my conclusion is as follows. The pattern of migration among rural laborers is quite complex in Maharashtra and takes multiple directions. In the last few decades, the size of rural laborers, particularly agricultural laborers, increased considerably, accompanied by rise in the poverty ratio in many districts. However, unlike many backward states, out-migration of rural laborers in Maharashtra is negligible. Migration takes place largely within the state. The limited out-migration mostly go to the rural and urban areas of Gujarat and Karnataka. Rural to rural labor migration is a predominant than the other streams. While laborers from backward regions migrate to the rural areas of developed pockets, laborers from the advanced regions migrate to the urban areas. Rural to rural migration is mostly temporary and seasonal in nature. The available independent surveys, reports and micro-level studies clearly show migration, particularly seasonal migration, as coping strategies of the rural laboring poor to escape from poverty and rising unemployment, as well as agricultural crisis caused by drought conditions. Neither the argument that vanishing sign of the villages and agriculture would lead to rapid rural-urban migration, nor the argument that government intervention would reverse the trend of distress migration holds true in the context of rural Maharashtra. Although, agriculture and rural economy continue to absorb a vast section of the rural labor force. Labor mobility in the rural areas largely takes place within the agricultural sector for the backward to developed pockets and within the different sectors of the rural economy. Labor migration is mainly poverty driven. Government intervention like MNREGA is not adequate enough to reverse the trend of large-scale distress migration. The findings come close to Breman's thesis in the thesis on labor circulation and footloose labor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Mahanti. Your topic on the migration of the labor migration on Maharashtra is actually very interesting because it is empirical as well as it is based on census data. So I express my thanks to you, and I invite the last speaker.
I am going to speak more about opportunities and challenges in Africa with regard to migration. I just want to say before I start that I'm not a specialist at migration. I was given the topic, so if I make any mistakes, it's entirely my fault. But I've taken the topic on, And it's not based on empirical research, it's more based on desktop research, and I give an overview of sample themes in the area of migration in Africa. So I give you a background history of the African migration situation with early and modern history, with overview of themes, which is related to a number of themes that I've put down there. Relating to, as you know, Africa is the basket case of the world, and it's got various themes that are innumerable to count also, and I put some of them here. And I also put the positive and the negative. I try and put the positive and negative aspects, and then at the end I try and put in some considerations about what can be done or what kinds of areas could be researched also, because it's an overview of the theme of the themes in the literature more than any empirical research. The early history of African civilization has always been migratory with indigenous peoples of southern Africa. They were nomadic, the Bantu people that came down to South Africa. In the modern history, after slavery, which is also a forced migration, you had African colonialism brought in enforced forms of labor, social, cultural, political dispensations. With globalization and the Arab Spring, there were outward migrations. So there's a push and pull factor not only within the continent, but also outside of the continent. And also skills loss from the continent, constant skills loss.